Dr. Lisa Murphy stared at the screen in her small office aboard Research Station Meridian. The message had arrived 3 hours ago, and she still could not believe what she was reading. After decades of searching the stars, humanity had finally received proof that they were not alone in the universe. The communication came from something called the Galactic Confederation. According to the message, this was a group of 47 different alien species that had been watching Earth for many years. They wanted to meet with humans and discuss bringing Earth into their galactic community. Lisa rubbed her tired eyes and read the message again. The aliens wrote in perfect English, which seemed impossible until she remembered that they had been watching humanity for decades. They probably knew human languages better than most humans did. The message was polite, but formal. It explained that a delegation would arrive at the research station in 2 days. They wanted to meet with both military representatives and civilian leaders. The aliens seemed very concerned about making sure they spoke with the right types of humans. Lisa picked up her communication device and called Captain Jake Morrison, who commanded the small military unit stationed on Meridian. Jake was a good man, tough but fair, and he had become a friend during the 3 years they had worked together on the station. "Jake, you need to see this message," Lisa said when he answered. 20 minutes later, Jake sat in Lisa's office reading the alien communication with growing amazement. His weathered face showed the same disbelief that Lisa felt. "They're really coming here?" Jake asked, looking up from the screen. "Tomorrow afternoon," Lisa confirmed. "They want to meet with military and civilian representatives. I think that means you and me." Jake nodded slowly. "Makes sense. I'll represent the military side and you can speak for the civilians and scientists." He paused, thinking, "We should probably call Betty Collins too. She handles administrative stuff better than either of us." Betty Collins was the station's chief administrator. She had arrived on Meridian 6 months ago to help organize the research projects and keep everything running smoothly. Lisa liked her immediately. Betty was smart, practical, and could solve problems quickly. When Betty arrived at Lisa's office an hour later, she took the news with typical calm efficiency. She read the message twice, asked several practical questions about preparations, and then started making lists of things they needed to do. "We'll need to prepare meeting rooms," Betty said, writing notes on her tablet. "And we should probably clear the main conference room. Do we know how many aliens are coming?" Lisa checked the message again. It says a small delegation, maybe 5 or 6 individuals from different species. The next day passed in a blur of preparations. The 3 humans cleaned the conference room, prepared food and drinks, and tried to imagine what their visitors would look like. The aliens had not sent any pictures or descriptions of themselves. Lisa spent most of the day reading everything she could find about first contact protocols. Most of it was theoretical, written by scientists who had never expected to actually meet aliens. She felt nervous and excited at the same time. Jake checked the station's security systems and made sure his small team of soldiers was ready. He did not expect trouble, but he wanted to be prepared for anything. That was just his nature. Betty organized everything else, from scheduling to supplies. She seemed to treat the arrival of humanity's first alien visitors like any other important meeting. Lisa admired her calm approach. The aliens arrived exactly when they said they would. Their ship appeared on the station's sensors like a silver bubble, moving silently through space. It was beautiful and strange, unlike any human spacecraft Lisa had ever seen. The ship docked with the station without any problems. Lisa, Jake, and Betty waited in the main airlock, wearing their best uniforms and trying to look professional. Lisa's heart was beating fast, but she tried to appear calm. The airlock door opened and humanity met its first aliens. The leader of the group was tall and thin, made of what looked like living crystal. Light moved through its transparent body, in soft blue patterns. When it spoke, its voice came from a small device attached to its chest. "I am Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian people," it said. "We greet you in peace." Behind Veltar came 4 other aliens, each completely different from the others. One looked like a large insect with 6 arms. Another seemed to be made of flowing metal. The third was covered in fur and had large, gentle eyes. The fourth was small and moved quickly, with skin that changed colors. Lisa found her voice first. Welcome to Research Station Meridian. I am Dr. Lisa Murphy. This is Captain Jake Morrison and Administrator Betty Collins. Veltar's crystal body pulsed with brighter light. We are honored to meet you. We have observed your species for some time, and we are curious to learn more about human society. The group moved to the conference room, where Betty had prepared refreshments. The aliens were polite but seemed puzzled by something. They kept looking back and forth between Jake, Lisa, and Betty, as if trying to figure something out. Forgive our confusion, Veltar finally said. We expected to meet with representatives from your warrior caste and your civilian caste separately. In our experience, most species maintain clear distinctions between these groups. Lisa exchanged glances with Jake and Betty. I'm not sure. I understand, she said. What do you mean by warrior caste and civilian caste? The insect-like alien who had introduced himself as Crixhan spoke for the first time. On our worlds and on all worlds we know, societies are divided into those who fight and those who do not fight. The warriors protect and defend while the civilians focus on other tasks like science, art, and administration. These are usually separate biological groups with different capabilities. Jake leaned forward. All humans have the same basic capabilities, he said. I'm military, but Lisa and Betty could fight if they needed to, and I can do research or administrative work when required. The aliens looked at each other with what seemed like confusion. The furry one, called Thais, spoke in a soft voice. But surely your species has some individuals who are naturally more suited for combat, and others who are naturally more peaceful? Betty smiled. We all learn basic self-defense and survival skills as children. Some people choose careers in the military, others in science or business, but we're all basically the same type of human. Lisa could see that the aliens were having trouble understanding this concept. On their worlds, it seemed that warriors and civilians were as different as cats and dogs. The idea that humans could all do the same basic things was clearly strange to them. Perhaps, Veltar said slowly, we could visit one of your settlements to observe how your society functions. This would help us understand your species better. Jake nodded. We can arrange that. New Colorado Colony is a good example of a typical human community. It's a farming settlement, but they handle their own security and administration. The aliens agreed to this plan, but Lisa could see they still looked confused. She realized that this first meeting was just the beginning of a much larger misunderstanding. The aliens expected humans to be like their own species, divided into clear groups with different abilities. But humans were something else entirely. They were all civilians and they were all warriors, depending on what the situation required. Lisa wondered what the aliens would think when they discovered this truth about humanity. The alien observation team arrived at New Colorado Colony on a bright morning when the twin suns cast long shadows across the farmland. Crixhan, the insectoid anthropologist, led the group of 5 aliens who had come to study what they believed would be a typical human civilian settlement. The colony sat in a green valley surrounded by rolling hills. Fields of crops stretched in neat rows, while livestock grazed in fenced pastures. It looked peaceful and quiet, exactly what the aliens expected from a farming community populated by what they assumed were non-warrior humans. Pete Johnson met them at the landing pad. He was a big man with dirt under his fingernails and sun-weathered skin. He wore simple work clothes and carried a farming tool in his belt. To the aliens, he looked like the perfect example of a peaceful civilian farmer. Welcome to New Colorado, Pete said with a friendly smile. I'm Pete Johnson, the settlement coordinator. We're happy to have you visit our community. Crixhan's 6 arms moved in what his species considered a polite greeting. We are honored to observe your civilian population in their natural environment. We hope to learn how your non-warrior caste organizes itself. Pete looked confused for a moment, then smiled again. Well, we're just regular folks trying to make a living from the land. Let me show you around. As they walked through the settlement, Pete pointed out the various buildings and explained how the colony worked. He talked about crop rotation, animal care, and weather patterns. The aliens nodded and took notes, pleased to see what appeared to be a peaceful agricultural society. They stopped at the school where Amy Foster was teaching a group of children about local wildlife. She was a young woman with kind eyes and a gentle voice. She seemed exactly like what the aliens expected from a civilian educator. "Today we're going to take a nature walk," Amy told her students. "Remember what we learned about staying safe in the wilderness. Stay together, watch for dangerous animals, and always know where your exits are." The alien observers smiled at what they saw as basic safety precautions. But Thys, the furry alien with sharp senses, noticed something odd about Amy's instructions. She was teaching the children to think like hunters, to always be aware of their surroundings and potential threats. As the group of 20 children prepared for their walk, Amy checked each child's emergency kit. Every kit contained a whistle, a small knife, basic medical supplies, and a communication device. The aliens found it strange that civilian children carried what looked like survival gear. "Is this level of preparation normal for a simple nature walk?" Crixon asked Pete. Pete shrugged. "Kids need to learn how to take care of themselves. This planet has some dangerous wildlife, and you never know when someone might get separated from the group." The class headed into the nearby forest, and the Danor aliens followed at a distance to observe. Amy led the children with smooth confidence, constantly scanning the trees and listening for sounds. She pointed out animal tracks, edible plants, and safe places to take shelter if needed. When one of the students spotted a large predator in the distance, Amy calmly moved the children to higher ground and used hand signals to communicate with them silently. Her movements were efficient and controlled. She never panicked or raised her voice, but the aliens could see that she was ready to fight if the animal came closer. The predator lost interest and wandered away, but the aliens had seen something that troubled them. This supposed civilian teacher had demonstrated tactical thinking and threat assessment skills that would impress professional warriors from their own species. After the nature walk, the observation team visited the colony's workshop where Randy Powell was repairing a large piece of farming equipment. Randy was a mechanical engineer, a thin man with quick hands and an inventive mind. Oil stains covered his work clothes and complex tools filled his workspace. While Randy worked, an alarm began sounding throughout the colony. Pete's voice came over the communication system, calm but urgent. "Pack of razor wolves approaching Sector 7. All residents implement standard defense protocols." The aliens expected panic or confusion, but instead they watched Randy smoothly transition from repair work to something entirely different. He opened a secure cabinet and pulled out weapons and protective gear. His movements were practiced and efficient. "Sorry about this," Randy said to the aliens. "These animals show up every few months. We'll have them dealt with in about 20 minutes." Randy joined other colonists who were moving toward Sector 7. The aliens followed, fascinated and disturbed by what they were seeing. These supposed civilians were organizing themselves like a military unit. Each colonist knew exactly what to do without being told. They moved in coordinated patterns, communicated with hand signals, and set up defensive positions with professional skill. Pete directed the operation like an experienced commander, while Amy had returned from her nature walk and was helping to coordinate evacuation routes for non-combatants. The razor wolves were large, aggressive predators with metallic claws and pack-hunting instincts. They attacked in coordinated waves, using sophisticated tactics that would challenge trained soldiers from most alien species. But the human colonists handled them with deadly efficiency. Randy used his engineering knowledge to create improvised traps and obstacles. Pete coordinated multiple defensive positions while personally engaging the pack leaders. Amy provided tactical support while ensuring the children remained safe. The entire battle lasted 18 minutes. When it was over, the razor wolves had retreated, and no colonists were seriously injured. The humans immediately returned to their normal activities as if nothing unusual had happened. Randy went back to fixing farming equipment. Amy resumed teaching her students. Pete checked on the livestock and scheduled repairs for damaged fencing. Within an hour, the colony looked exactly like the peaceful farming community the aliens had first observed. That evening, the observation team gathered in their temporary shelter to discuss what they had witnessed. Crixhan was visibly shaken. Those were not civilians, he said. They fought like elite warriors, but they dressed like farmers and teachers. Thais agreed. The coordination, the tactical awareness, the weapon skills. These humans have military training equivalent to our best soldiers, but they act like non-combatants. The small, color-changing alien named Zix had been quiet all day, but now he spoke up. What if they are not pretending? What if this is simply how their species works? The other aliens stared at him. That's impossible, Crixhan said. Warrior castes and civilian castes are biologically different. You cannot have both capabilities in the same individual. But Zix continued. We have observed their behavior carefully. These humans show no signs of caste differentiation. The Aizu, teacher, the farmer, the engineer. They all demonstrated identical combat capabilities while maintaining their civilian roles. Thais shook her head. No known species works that way. There must be some explanation we are missing. The aliens spent the night reviewing their recordings and measurements, trying to find evidence of hidden warrior modifications or secret military training. But every test showed the same impossible result. These humans were exactly what they appeared to be, ordinary civilians who could transform into deadly fighters at a moment's notice, then return to their peaceful lives without any apparent difficulty. As the first sun rose over New Colorado Colony, the aliens realized they were observing something that challenged everything they thought they knew about intelligent life. These humans were not divided into separate castes. They were something else entirely. A species where every individual carried the potential to be both protector and protected, warrior and civilian, predator and community member. The implications of this discovery would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The great council chamber of the Galactic Confederation hung in space like a crystal flower, its transparent walls showing the stars beyond. Representatives from 47 different species had gathered to discuss the most unusual problem they had ever faced: what to do about humanity. Councillor Thys of the Nereid people floated in her water-filled chamber, her gills fluttering with agitation. Around the circular room, other alien representatives sat in seats designed for their various body types. At the center of the chamber, a holographic display showed images from the human colony that the observation team had visited. The evidence is clear, Thais said, her voice carried through water and translated by the council's systems. These humans are too dangerous for integration into our confederation. Every single individual we observed showed combat capabilities that exceed our best warriors. Murmurs of agreement came from several other council members. The Zephyrian delegate, Veltar's superior, pulsed with worried light. Our own observations confirm this assessment. We cannot find any biological markers that separate their warrior and civilian castes. This suggests their entire population consists of potential soldiers. But from the far side of the chamber came an unexpected voice. Admiral Zefkol of the Krathari Empire stood up, his massive armored form casting shadows across the floor. The Krathari were known as the most militaristic species in the Confederation, with a strict warrior culture that dominated their society. I disagree, Zefkol said in his deep, rumbling voice. Yes, these humans are formidable fighters, but they also show something our own warriors often lack: restraint. The chamber fell silent. It was rare for the Krathari to speak in favor of any species, especially one that might challenge their military supremacy. Zefkol continued. Our warriors are bred for combat from birth. They know only war and conquest. But these humans fight only when necessary, then return to peaceful activities. They build communities, create art, explore science. They are warriors who choose not to be warriors most of the time. Before anyone could respond, the chamber's security alarms began sounding. A calm voice announced that the council was under attack by extremist terrorists calling themselves the Pure Blood Alliance. These fanatics believed that only original Confederation species should be allowed in galactic government. The attack had been planned for months. Armed terrorists wearing advanced combat suits stormed the station through multiple entry points. Their weapons were powerful enough to threaten even armored species like the Krathari. In the council chamber, panic spread quickly. Most Confederation species had no combat training among their civilian populations. The diplomats and administrators were helpless against military assault. But 3 humans were present in the chamber. Commander Steve Parker represented Earth in the membership discussions. Dr. Sarah Kim had been invited to present her research on human society, and surprisingly, 2 maintenance workers named Tom Bradley and Maria Gonzalez happened to be repairing communication systems when the attack began. What happened next shocked every alien observer. The moment the first terrorist broke into the chamber, all 4 humans instantly coordinated without speaking. Steve, despite being the only official military representative, did not take command. Instead, the humans seemed to automatically form a defensive unit where each person knew their role. Tom Bradley, a man who spent his days fixing broken equipment, smoothly disabled the terrorist's weapon with an improvised electromagnetic pulse device he built from spare parts in under 30 seconds. Maria Gonzalez, whose job was cleaning and maintaining the station, demonstrated perfect knowledge of the chamber's layout and tactical positions. Dr. Sarah Kim, a scientist who studied alien cultures, provided covering fire while analyzing the terrorists' attack patterns and predicting their next moves. Commander Steve Parker coordinated with station security through the communication systems that Tom had quickly repaired. The 4 humans moved like parts of a single organism. They communicated through subtle gestures and brief eye contact. Each anticipated what the others would do. When more terrorists entered the chamber, the humans adapted their strategy instantly without discussion. But what amazed the alien council members most was not the humans' fighting ability. It was their control. Despite being under attack by enemies trying to kill them, the humans used only the minimum force necessary. They disabled rather than destroyed when possible. They protected alien civilians, even while defending themselves. When Maria spotted a wounded Zephyrian delegate, she immediately left her defensive position to provide medical aid, trusting the other humans to cover her. When Tom realized that his electromagnetic weapon might damage sensitive alien equipment, he switched to less effective but safer methods. The entire fight lasted only 8 minutes. When station security finally arrived with reinforcements, they found the terrorists captured alive and the human civilians calmly helping wounded aliens. Steve was coordinating medical aid while Sarah analyzed the attack to prevent future incidents. Admiral Zefkol watched all of this with growing amazement. His own Krathari warriors were brave and skilled, but they would have killed every terrorist and probably caused significant collateral damage. These humans had won the fight while minimizing harm to everyone involved. After the crisis ended, the council reconvened to continue their discussion about human membership. But the mood in the chamber had completely changed. Councillor Theiss, who had been opposed to human integration, spoke first. "I have never seen anything like what we just witnessed. Those humans fought like elite special forces, but they were a maintenance worker, a scientist, a janitor, and 1 military officer." Veltar's crystal body pulsed with thoughtful light. More importantly, they showed judgment and restraint under extreme stress. They could have killed their attackers easily, but they chose not to. Dr. Sarah Kim stood to address the council. "If I may explain, this is how human society works. We all learn basic survival and defense skills because our evolutionary history required it. But we also developed strong moral and legal systems to control these capabilities." She activated a holographic display showing human history. "We evolved as persistence hunters who worked together to survive. This gave us both the individual skills of predators and the social cooperation needed for civilization. Every human child learns not just how to fight, but when fighting is appropriate and when it is not." Commander Steve Parker added, "Our military forces are simply humans who specialize in combat applications of abilities that all humans possess to some degree. But we all share the same basic nature and the same moral framework." The council members looked at each other with new understanding. These humans were indeed a species of potential warriors, but they were warriors who had chosen to build a peaceful civilization. They were predators who had learned to cooperate instead of compete. Admiral Zefkol stood again. "I have fought many battles and commanded thousands of warriors. I have never seen fighters who could switch so easily between combat effectiveness and peaceful cooperation. These humans may be the most dangerous species we have encountered, but they may also be the most trustworthy. Young Counselor Kix of the artistic Melodian species, who had been quiet throughout the discussion, finally spoke. Perhaps the question is not whether humans are too dangerous for our Confederation. Perhaps the question is whether our Confederation needs what humans can offer. The chamber fell silent as the aliens considered this possibility. A species that combined the protective instincts of warriors with the creative drives of civilians might be exactly what the galaxy needed in an age of growing threats and challenges. The vote to accept humanity into the Galactic Confederation was not unanimous, but it passed by a significant margin. However, the aliens insisted on a unique classification. Humans would be listed as a singular evolutionary development, requiring special diplomatic protocols. As the council session ended, many aliens realized they had just witnessed the beginning of a new era in galactic civilization. They had met a species that challenged everything they thought they knew about intelligence, society, and the nature of civilized behavior. Dr. Alex Chen arrived on the research ship Discovery, with boxes full of equipment and a head full of questions. The Galactic Confederation had approved the most comprehensive study of human society ever attempted, and Alex would lead the human side of the research team. His partner was Quinthara, a Velkari behavioral specialist whose insect-like appearance hid one of the sharpest minds in galactic psychology. Together they would spend 6 months visiting human worlds to understand how a species of universal predators had created peaceful civilization. Their first stop was the corporate headquarters of Wright Interstellar Shipping on Luna Station. Carol Wright had built her company from a single cargo vessel into one of the largest shipping operations in human space. She was known for her sharp business sense and fair treatment of employees. Carol met them in her office, a practical room, with large windows showing the Earth below. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and intelligent eyes. When she smiled, Alex noticed that her expression reminded him of a wolf sizing up potential prey, but her manner was completely friendly. "Welcome to Wright Shipping," Carol said, offering them comfortable chairs. "I understand you want to study how humans conduct business." Quinthara's 4 eyes focused on Carol with intense interest. "We are curious about your competitive strategies. In most species, business competition involves either direct confrontation between warrior castes or careful negotiation between civilian castes. But humans seem to approach commerce differently." Carol laughed. "Business is like hunting, but the prey is profit and market share instead of food. You have to be patient, study your competition, find their weaknesses, and strike at the right moment. But you also need to work with other companies when it benefits everyone." She showed them charts and graphs explaining her company's growth strategies. Alex watched Quinthara's reactions as Carol described tactics that would make military commanders proud. She talked about identifying competitor vulnerabilities, coordinating multi-front campaigns for new contracts, and using deception to hide her true intentions during negotiations. But Carol also explained her employee policies, environmental protections, and charitable work. She treated business like warfare, but warfare with rules that protected innocent people and maintained long-term relationships. "The goal is not to destroy your competitors," Carol explained. "The goal is to succeed while making sure the whole industry stays healthy. If you kill all the other businesses, you end up with no one to trade with and no one to hire good workers from." Their next visit was to Titan's Rest, a mining world where Danny Roberts supervised the extraction of rare metals from asteroid fragments. Danny was a big man with mechanical prosthetics replacing his left arm and right leg, lost in a mining accident years earlier. The mining operation was dangerous work, requiring constant cooperation between dozens of workers operating heavy machinery in hostile environments. Alex and Quinthara expected to find a rigid hierarchy with clear command structures, like military organizations from other species. Instead, they found something much more complex. Danny did coordinate the overall operation, but every worker could make independent decisions and take command when circumstances required it. The humans switched between following orders and giving orders based on expertise and situation, rather than fixed rank. when a rock slide threatened one of the mining platforms. Alex watched the human crew respond with the same coordination he had witnessed at New Colorado Colony. But this time, instead of fighting predators, they were fighting natural disasters and mechanical failures. Jenny Martinez, an equipment operator with only 2 years of experience, took charge when she realized the rock slide pattern matched something she had studied in school. Danny immediately followed her lead, trusting her expertise over his own authority. Carlos White, the team's safety inspector, used mining equipment to create improvised barriers and escape routes. His movements showed the same tactical thinking that soldiers used in combat, but applied to industrial problem-solving. The crisis lasted 3 hours. When it was over, no one was seriously injured, and the mining operation continued with minimal delays. The humans had treated the rock slide like an enemy to be defeated through coordinated action. "How do you maintain discipline when everyone can potentially take command?" Quinthera asked Danny during their evening interview. Danny thought for a moment. "We all want the same things: to stay alive, do good work, and take care of each other. When someone has the best idea or the most knowledge about a problem, we follow them. When the situation changes, maybe someone else takes the lead. It works because we trust each other and we all understand the mission." The research team's third major study location was Mars Colony, where they interviewed Nancy Bell, a retired military officer who now worked as a civilian administrator managing water resources for 3 million colonists. Nancy was a small woman, with sharp eyes and graying brown hair. She had spent 20 years commanding Space Marines in combat operations, then transitioned to civilian life without any biological or social restructuring. This amazed the alien researchers, since their own species required significant medical intervention to move individuals between warrior and civilian castes. "The skills are basically the same," Nancy explained when they asked about her career change. "Leadership, planning, resource management, crisis response. I used to coordinate military operations against hostile forces. Now I coordinate engineering projects to keep people supplied with clean water. The principles are identical." She showed them her current project, a complex system for recycling water from atmospheric processors across the colony. The planning involved the same strategic thinking she had used in military campaigns, but focused on construction schedules and supply chains instead of battles. When a major pipeline failure threatened water supplies to the southern districts, Alex and Quinthera watched Nancy respond exactly like a military commander facing enemy attack. She gathered information, analyzed options, coordinated multiple teams, and adapted her strategy as new problems developed. But her goals were completely different from military objectives. Instead of defeating enemies, she was protecting civilians. Instead of capturing territory, she was maintaining infrastructure. Her predatory instincts had been channeled into protective and constructive purposes. The most surprising discovery came during their final interview with Kevin Murphy, a 17-year-old high school student on Europa Station. Kevin was not a soldier, scientist, or business leader. He was just a normal teenager studying mathematics and dreaming of becoming an engineer. During a routine school emergency drill, Alex and Quinthera observed Kevin's responses to simulated crisis situations. Without any special training beyond standard human education, Kevin demonstrated the same threat assessment and tactical thinking patterns they had seen in experienced adults. When presented with a scenario involving station hull breaches, Kevin immediately identified escape routes, calculated resource requirements, and organized his classmates into efficient work groups. His solutions showed sophisticated understanding of physics, psychology, and logistics. "This is impossible," Quinthera whispered to Alex. "This juvenile shows strategic capabilities that would qualify him as a military specialist in our society, but he has received no warrior caste training." Alex nodded, finally understanding what made humans unique. "He doesn't need special training because the capabilities are built into every human. Our education system just helps people refine abilities they already possess." After 6 months of research, Alex and Quinthera compiled their findings. Every human they studied, from corporate executives to farmers to teenagers, showed the same fundamental pattern. They possessed individual capabilities for tactical thinking, threat assessment, and coordinated action that other species only found in their specialized warrior castes. But humans had evolved social structures that channeled these predatory instincts toward cooperative goals. Instead of competing with each other for dominance, they competed with problems, challenges, and external threats while supporting each other. Their final report concluded that humans represented a successful evolutionary experiment that had never been attempted by any other known species. They were predators who had learned to hunt together instead of hunting each other, creating a civilization where everyone was both protector and protected. The implications of this discovery would reshape how the galaxy understood intelligence, society, and the possibilities for peaceful cooperation between different types of consciousness. 1 year after first contact, the galaxy had changed in ways no one expected. Ambassador Janet Price stood in her new office aboard Confederation Central Station, looking through the transparent walls at the streams of ships carrying representatives from dozens of worlds. As the first human to hold a permanent seat on the Confederation Council, she had watched the slow transformation of galactic society. The changes started small. Admiral Zefkol of the Krathari Empire had requested human advisors for his military academies. He wanted to understand how humans could maintain such high individual combat effectiveness while working as cooperative units instead of rigid hierarchies. Dr. Lisa Murphy, now director of the newly created Interspecies Studies Institute, received daily requests from alien researchers wanting to understand human social structures. Everyone wanted to know how a species of predators had created stable, peaceful communities. But the real test came when long-range sensors detected something that terrified the entire galaxy. The Void-touched Empire, a hostile force from beyond. The Galactic Rim was approaching Confederation space with a massive invasion fleet. The Void-touched were different from any species the Confederation had ever encountered. They were not interested in negotiation or conquest. They wanted only destruction, sweeping through star systems and leaving nothing but empty space behind them. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral of Joint Defense Operations, found himself commanding the largest military alliance in galactic history. Representatives from 47 different species looked to him for leadership against an enemy that threatened all intelligent life. The first battle came at Kepler Station, a research outpost on the edge of Confederation territory. The station housed 20,000 civilians from various species, along with a small defense force. When the Void-touched fleet arrived, everyone expected the defenders to evacuate immediately. Instead, they received an emergency message from the station commander requesting permission to defend their position. Admiral Morrison was surprised to learn that half the defense volunteers were human civilians who lived and worked on the station. Bob Garcia ran a restaurant in the station's civilian quarter. He had never served in the military, but when the evacuation alarm sounded, he reported to the defense coordinator instead of the escape pods. Helen Price worked as a librarian in the research section. Kyle Foster was an 18-year-old apprentice mechanic. None of them were soldiers, but all of them were ready to fight. The alien species represented on the station followed standard evacuation procedures. Their civilian populations moved to safety, while their small warrior castes prepared defensive positions. But the human civilians did something unprecedented. They integrated seamlessly with the professional defense forces. Admiral Morrison watched the battle through remote sensors, amazed by what he saw. The human civilians fought with the same coordination and tactical awareness he had observed throughout human space. Bob Garcia used his knowledge of the station's layout to coordinate ambush positions in the residential areas. Helen Price analyzed Void-touched attack patterns and predicted their next moves. Kyle Foster improvised weapons and defensive barriers using maintenance equipment. But what impressed the alien observers most was how the humans protected the evacuating civilians from other species. While fighting the Void-touched invaders, the human defenders also escorted Zephyrian researchers to safety, carried wounded Nereid diplomats to medical stations, and coordinated with Krathari warriors to maximize defensive efficiency. The battle lasted 14 hours. Against overwhelming odds, the defenders of Kepler Station held their position until Confederation reinforcements arrived. The Void-touched fleet retreated, confused by an enemy that fought with individual initiative but perfect coordination. After the battle, representatives from every Confederation species wanted to understand what they had witnessed. How could civilian humans transform into effective soldiers while maintaining their protective instincts toward other species? Dr. Sarah Kim, now working closely with Ambassador Price, explained the phenomenon to a gathering of alien military commanders. Humans evolved as social hunters, she said. We developed the ability to work together against external threats while protecting our community members. To us, the entire Confederation has become our extended community. Admiral Zefkol, who had fought alongside human forces in several battles, nodded in agreement. Human warriors do not fight for conquest or glory. They fight to protect. This makes them more dangerous to enemies and more trustworthy to allies. The void-touched war continued for 8 months, but the tide had turned at Kepler Station. Human tactics and philosophy spread throughout Confederation forces. Other species learned to value individual initiative alongside group coordination. They discovered that protecting others could be more motivating than defeating enemies. The final battle of the war took place at the edge of galactic space, where the main void-touched fleet made its last desperate assault. Admiral Morrison commanded Confederation forces that included warriors from every member species, but the humans provided something unique to the Alliance. When Krathari warriors became isolated from their command structure, human civilians taught them to make independent decisions. When Zephyrian scientists were trapped behind enemy lines, human farmers and teachers coordinated rescue operations. When Nereid diplomats needed to evacuate damaged ships, human children helped carry them to safety. The Confederation forces won the war not just through superior tactics or technology, but through a new understanding of what it meant to fight together. The humans had taught the galaxy that the strongest warriors were those who fought to protect, rather than to conquer. After the war ended, the changes in galactic society became permanent. The Confederation established new training programs based on human principles of individual responsibility and group cooperation. Species that had maintained strict separations between warrior and civilian castes began experimenting with more flexible social structures. Ambassador Price received regular reports about these developments. The Krathari Empire had started teaching all citizens basic tactical skills, while their warriors learned to value protection over destruction. The Zephyrian Collective began training their scientists in crisis response and emergency coordination. Even the peaceful Melodian artist created new work celebrating the concept of protective strength. Dr. Murphy's Research Institute became the galaxy's leading center for studying cooperative behavior and social evolution. Alien students came from across Confederation space to learn about human approaches to conflict resolution, community building, and crisis management. But perhaps the most significant change was in how the galaxy understood intelligence itself. Before meeting humans, most species assumed that civilization required choosing between being predators or prey, warriors or civilians, strong or peaceful. Humans had proven that these were false choices. They showed that a species could be both, strong and gentle, both dangerous and nurturing, both individual and collective. They demonstrated that the highest form of evolution was not the development of specialized castes, but the integration of all capabilities within each individual. As Ambassador Price looked out at the busy traffic around Confederation Central Station, she saw ships carrying Krathari warriors working alongside Zephyrian scientists, Nereid diplomats collaborating with Melodian artists, and humans from dozens of worlds serving as bridges between different ways of thinking. The galaxy had learned that diversity was not about having different types of beings doing different jobs. True diversity meant having different approaches to the same fundamental challenge: how to survive and thrive while protecting those who could not protect themselves. Humanity had given the galaxy a new understanding of what it meant to be civilized. They had shown that the strongest societies were not those with the most powerful warriors, but those where every individual was ready to be a warrior when protection was needed, and a peacemaker when cooperation was required. The age of human integration had begun, and with it a new chapter in the story of galactic civilization, where strength and compassion were no longer opposites, but two aspects of the same evolutionary achievement.